Chapter 12, Free to Be, 1916 to 1936. As movies continued to push racist ideas that put Black people's lives at risk, and the United States and its allies battled enemy nations in World War I, Black people from the South fled like refugees in their own country. They headed north, to Chicago, to Detroit, to New York, in search of freedom. They didn't know what opportunities were waiting for them there, but they had to take their chances. The chance to work, the chance to vote, the chance to live. Some even came north from the Caribbean for the chance to escape colonialism, like a Jamaican man named Marcus Garvey. The first thing Garvey did when he arrived in 1916 was visit the NAACP office. The mission of the National Association for the Advancement of Color People, the NAACP, was stated in its name, to advance or improve the lives of Black people. And one of the founders of this organization was W.E.B. Du Bois. At the NAACP office, Garvey noticed that no one dark-skinned worked there, and that Du Bois's vision also seemed to include colorism. Let's pause. Word check. Colorism is discrimination against those with darker skin in favor of those with lighter skin. It is tied to racism because of the idea that the lighter the skin, the more intelligent and beautiful and better a person is, all because light skin is closer to white skin. Unpause. Remember how Du Bois and Washington were in a game of tug-of-war, which wasn't really a game, over their ideas about education and freedom for Black people? Now, Du Bois and Garvey would quickly become the new players. But instead of battling over ideas for education, they battled over Blackness. Du Bois was a light-skinned biracial Black man. Garvey was a dark-skinned Black man. Du Bois was an assimilationist. He believed that only some Black people had value. Garvey was an anti-racist. He believed that all Black people were valuable. So Garvey started his own organization called the Universal Negro Improvement Association, UNIA. Its purpose was to focus on African solidarity, the beauty of dark skin and African American culture, and global African self-determination. But remember also that people aren't just one way. They can be complicated and full of contradictions. In many ways, Du Bois made anti-racist strides even while holding on to assimilationist ideas. For example, Du Bois noticed that the country thought of Black men as good enough to fight as soldiers, skilled, smart, brave, in World War I, but not good enough to be treated equally to white people back at home. He began to speak out against this contradiction. In a collection of essays, Du Bois wrote about the humanity of Black people. He also honored Black women. This was a huge deal because Black women were unsung heroes who had been completely left out of the race conversation. But though he made anti-racist strides, it was difficult for Du Bois to let go of his assimilationist ideas. He still believed that if Black people spoke, dressed, and behaved in ways that were acceptable to white people, then they would be accepted. An awakening. The Harlem Renaissance was a time of renewal of Black creativity and culture. The music, paintings, and writings of young Black artists in Harlem, New York would create a new African American identity. There were many contributors to this cultural explosion. Writers such as Zora Neale Hurston and Langston Hughes. Performers such as Josephine Baker and Paul Robeson. Musicians such as Billie Holiday and Duke Ellington. Artists such as Augusta Savage and Aaron Douglas, as well as intellectuals such as Marcus Garvey and W.E.B. Du Bois. Still tied to assimilationist ideas, Du Bois wanted these talented young Black artists to use their art to get white people to respect them, to be seen as perfect. Black artists wanted the freedom to be imperfect, to be human. Black people have always resisted racist ideas, even when it was Black people who pushed them. And there were Black people who rejected Du Bois's racist ideas. They believed they should be able to express themselves however they wanted, as whole humans, without worrying about white acceptance. Like Langston Hughes. He was the most popular poet of the Harlem Renaissance and remains one of America's most celebrated poets. He declared that if Black artists leaned toward whiteness, their art would not truly be their own. Hughes believed that Black people were beautiful, just as they are. But no matter how Black people spoke, dressed, wrote, painted, danced, or how much they educated themselves, white people continued to spread racist ideas and saw Black people as less human. Slowly worn down from this painful realization, Du Bois began to change. He began to want Black people to have the freedom to be Black, and for that to be enough. Du Bois argued that the American educational system was failing the country because it wouldn't tell the truth about race in America, because it was too concerned with protecting and defending the white race. He published an article called Segregation, which shocked everyone. In it, he agreed with his former rival Marcus Garvey. Du Bois argued for the importance of Black safe spaces, spaces where Black people could resist and fight against racist ideas. Ultimately, Du Bois was arguing for ideas he'd held in the past, but in new ways, in ways that Frederick Douglass, Sojourner Truth, Ida B. Wells Barnett, Marcus Garvey, and many others before him had argued, that Black people were humans. Du Bois had an awakening. He had turned away from assimilation and finally turned toward anti-racism.